The best possible draft strategy in 2025 that I can find, and I comb them every day through mock draft and draft on underdog, promo code Smitty. And I'm telling you, the best strategy you can find, and this is just one variation of it, one variant that involves two of the most likely candidates to make it amazing, is this one right here. Bucky doesn't always fall at the 2-3 turn. Kyren always does in a best ball draft, maybe not in your mom and pop draft. We'll talk about the variation that would be required in a water cooler draft, your work league, your Aunt Edna's draft.
Get Baris or get Burrow. Either one.
In best ball right now, you can land Jamar Chase, Bucky Irving, and Kyren Williams, and this is the best strategy in fantasy football, period. The running back value in round 2 and 3, Breece Hall lingering in the 2 to 3 area, Kyren definitely in round 3 in best ball, Bucky in round 2. Sometimes he falls later in round 2. This is an extreme example of the best strategy. We're going to break it all down. The Fantasy Football Show, the best strategy in fantasy football 2025 show, begins right now. As I said, this is an extreme example, not because of Kyren, not because of Jamar Chase. These two are very easy to acquire together. What you tend to have happen if you have that, let's call it the 1 pick. So let's put Jamar in that 1.1 spot, and let's cook up any sort of scenario we can find that's better than the Bucky and Kyren. I don't think we can, but maybe Bucky's gone. Let me just put it on screen so we can actually see it and what it looks like. But so Bucky at the end of round 2, again, the most unlikely of what we're talking about here to happen, but it happens. And again, this happens more in best ball than non-best ball. So we'll cover both. I'll tell you what my plan of attack would be in a grandma league where maybe Kyren and these guys, these running backs won't fall as far because it's a running back hungry league. But Jamar Chase, Bucky, Kyren, probably the best draft strategy you can find. Now, the very quick and easy solution to this in best ball, again, sometimes in non-best ball, but specifically in best ball, is that if Bucky's going like in this territory and you got this 1.1, you can't get Bucky because he rarely falls here. He does, but rarely. So let's take him off the board. They love to hate this man right here. This is the best round 2 pick, and he falls into round 3 quite often. This happens almost every time, guaranteed in best ball. Best ball, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, best ball, get on over to Underdog where they'll match your first deposit up to $1,000 in bonus credits. So get up to $1,000 in bonus credits just by going to Underdog, promo code Smitty, and that link will be in the description of the video. But nearly 100% of the time, Jamar Chase won, and you're sitting there at the 2-3 turn. Kyren and Hall are staples in round 3. Bucky's in 2 sometimes for sure. So this would be the easiest, dominating number 1 overall draft slot strategy in fantasy football. So really, you know, we could make this video about how do you dominate the 1.1, but I don't think we have to necessarily pigeonhole ourselves into that process right here, because I think it's important to talk about, well, can you construct this same thing using another wide receiver in another draft slot? And the answer is yes. So if we take Jamar Chase off the board, we move Breece Hall to the middle of round 2, or Kyren. This is where this gets a little dicey, because Kyren, he falls to the 3.1 to the 3.5, 3.6. He can go as far as 3.6. And you might be like, whoa, what are you talking about? Look, your grandma league hasn't adjusted and adapted to wide receiver heavy thinking, which is infecting best ball. So it is a very different environment. Quite honestly, these best ball communities are supposed to be the sharks and sharp drafters, but the real people are drafting Kyren in round 2. If you draft Kyren in round 2 and you don't force it, like the ADPs, you know, you're on the ESPN and the ADP for Kyren, let's say, is at 3.2. Don't take him at 2.2. Take advantage of the ADP. But there are going to be a lot of formats, redraft, non-best ball formats where Kyren's going in round 2. So we're going to have to address best ball and non-best ball as we go, because they're very different. But if we throw another wide receiver, let's call, and this is what's beautiful about this draft strategy, the wide receiver and then running back approach. Even though I never choose a strategy of drafting positions, I always draft players. I always go best player available. This tends to always be able to be executed upon drafting best player available. That's why I can say it's the best, strategy in fantasy football. Of course, you always want to adjust and adapt and divert in case there's a different plan that comes up that looks better. But the beautiful part about this particular strategy is that no matter what, as you go down round one, there's a wide receiver that fits the bill for this approach. And then these running backs, typically a handful of them fall into place every time. So if you don't get the 1 pick and you get the 2, 3, or 4 pick, well, now you can go in the direction of, let's call it Justin Jefferson. So if we put JJ at the 2, the 3, the 4, now we reach a little bit for Hall, or I can take Hall off the board. We'll put him right here and make him very small so that we don't distract you. And now we can put Bucky back on the board because now we're not at the bottom of round 2. So now Bucky comes into the conversation. Now Breece Hall, who sometimes falls in best ball, into round 3, believe it or not, there are haters out there that don't like him. They think he's running back 13, 14. He's a running back 2. And depending on how hungry your running back thinking is in your league, he could fall in round 3. So now you got 2 options for round 3, even though there's still not a great chance that both of them fall to 3.6, 3.7, 3.8. But this gives you that opportunity. And if you go further down the draft, JJ still applies. You can take him as late as like 5 or 6. You know, sometimes he falls later. Let's take JJ off the board and say, okay, let's go march down round 1 a little bit and say, let's say you get a 1.6 and JJ's not on the board. Well, guess who's on the board? One of my favorite first round wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb. And he's available anywhere from 4 to like 7. So now you're covered and in the same type of thinking. If let's say these running backs aren't here and available, there are receivers that you might like, you know, JSN or a potential JD5 or a Josh Allen. You can change directions and go a Najee Harrison 5 or 6 and he's falling that far. And you could go with a potential JD5, Chase Brown here, a bunch of different avenues. But I want to focus on that if this can be deployed, this is the best strategy in fantasy football 2025. So I'm not going to really swing off the Hall or Kyren or Bucky. In some cases, Bucky does go in round 3. This is the focal point of the entire show. If you can't land one of these 3 running backs, or let's call it, I'll try and see if I can find a 4th running back that applies in this 4th round, or 3rd round, but it is hard to find somebody that has more value and upside than this. You could say, like, let's say Hampton, you know, falls into the most amazing spot. You could potentially put him in the mix there. You're still taking a very balanced and amazing approach for rounds 1 and 2. You get Lamb, you get JJ, you get whoever we end up giving you here in the first round. And again, there's a wide receiver that can be tied to every draft slot all the way down to make best player available wide receiver round 1. Not saying I don't take Gibbs in a lot of drafts just to mix things up and hedge my bets and make sure I got Gibbs in a couple leagues. Bijan, same thing. But I'm telling you, the best player available can be argued for wide receiver all the way down round 1 just because of the value of wide receiver this year. But again, Lamb, Bucky, Hall, or Kyren in the middle of round 3, you can pull this off. If you get an even further downstream draft selection, and let's say Lamb Chops isn't your guy, then you start getting into the Neighbors territory, where I think Neighbors, especially with the Russell Wilson signing off of the Winston signing, Winston was making this guy climb to 5 or 6, and people were very quick to be like, copying, you know, what we've been saying, that Neighbors could be wide receiver 1 overall this year. Now with the Russell Wilson signing, he's falling again. So like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, he almost goes all the way from 7 down, you know, and then if he's not available, then use BT, use, St. Brown if you want. But I think BT and Neighbors kind of are where I could draw the line of saying you got now a wide receiver at every draft slot around 1. But if you get Neighbors kind of at, let's call it 10, 11, 12 makes it hard. 11 makes it kind of hard to pull this off. Trying to get Hall or Kyren or somebody in round 4 is not going to happen. So then we go to a different, strategy. I guess the strategy you could say is guaranteed at the 1, less guaranteed as you go down. And so if we have, let's say, a 9 pick or a 10 pick, there's a chance that, so you have to take Bucky, or you could even get Achane. The closer you get down, the more likely you could even deploy this in a little bit of a different way. And you can throw Devon Achane. And I did this last night. I drafted Neighbors and Achane in a draft, and it was the first time I got it done. This can happen now. It seems this can happen now. It seems like Achane's ADP is moving a little bit. So this is awesome. This is a great strategy. And then you like I said, because you got this tight round 2 pick, you're going to have a 10 or 11 pick, equal to this neighbor's pick in round 3, and it just makes getting Hall or Kyren, Bucky's not falling there, just a lot harder. So then you end up going a different approach. Now, what would I do if I was in this situation? I was trying to deploy the best strategy in fantasy football, getting that Hall or Kyren in round 3, but it doesn't fly. What would be the best way to fill out this team? Looking at the wide receivers, I suppose, JSN would be in the mix here. I think it really gets dicey at wide receiver because you're talking like, okay, Devontae Smith, I like him. Is it too early? Garrett Wilson falls in round 3. I don't know about the end of round 3. Probably a lot less rare to find him there. It's possible. He tends to go in the 3.1, 3.2, 3.4 territory, so he probably isn't a good candidate. I would say this is where you use best player available to detour you, and you say to yourself, do I want the best scorer, the number 1 potential overall scorer in fantasy football, instead of forcing a position? And that's where I say that's when maybe you deploy the quarterback. Having a 10, 11, or 12 pick gives you the power to say, I'm going quarterback in the 3rd round, because the value drop off if Hall is gone, if Kyren's gone, if Garrett Wilson's gone, if all these receivers are gone, running backs are gone that I love, then why not take the best scorer, the player that could be the number 1 overall scorer in fantasy football? I don't care if there's a lot of quarterbacks. This is a huge move. Or if you believe the number 1 scorer is Josh Allen, then you take Josh Allen here instead of JD5. And then round 4, you can do a ton of different things. Chase Brown's there. There are a lot of guys that could fall there. Hampton, maybe Henderson goes to Denver, and you're like, now Trey Henderson, Smitty's right. Trey is the guy. You take Trey or that's great. Like, even if we throw Hampton in here, and I think Hampton's the more universally thought running back 2 in this draft class. So I think this makes a little more visual sense for now, but I think Henderson will be in this mix. Like, for detouring, how is this? Is anybody ashamed of themselves walking out of their draft with a Josh Allen, a Hampton, an Achane, a Neighbors? I don't think so. I think you're loving this look right here. At the end of the day, this strategy, the best strategy in fantasy football 2025, kind of needs to come from the 1, the 2, or the 3, because you're going to need one of these wide receivers. Let's call it Jamar Chase for now. And this strategy, again, works best from the 1 slot. So this video is kind of really narrowing down to the 1, the 2, the 3 overall pick to deploy this. Jamar Chase, Bucky Irving. If he doesn't fall, then Kyren or Breece Hall, and then the other one at the top of round 3. You can get this done. In a majority of leagues, even non-best ball, you can get this done. You'll have most likely 2 out of these 3 running backs, Kyren, Bucky, and Hall, there for your 2, 3 turn picks right there. And if not, you play in a really running back heavy league, and that's okay too. And you just draft against traffic. Now all of a sudden you got receivers that shouldn't be falling to the end of 2, and you take a monster couple wide receivers here, or one of them being a wide receiver. And I'm sure you're going to get one of Hall, Kyren, or Bucky at this 24 pick, and you take Garrett Wilson at the top of round 3, and you take Bijan or Gibbs, and now you got a wide receiver 1 in Garrett Wilson. Or you could go chasing Garrett Wilson and Hall, chase Garrett Wilson and Kyren, chase Garrett Wilson and Bucky. But I do believe a majority of you, even in your non-best ball drafts, from the 1 spot, maybe from the 2, maybe from the 3, and we'll call it 1 through 3 domination strategy. You can get this strategy deployed. Best strategy in fantasy football, period. Whether you can deploy it or not, whether your league allows you to deploy it or not, that is the best strategy in fantasy football. And the diversion with quarterback is the best way I can help either redraft and non-best ball people that can't see these running back values that other people see. The best way to detour and still have, with a Hampton here or whatever, an equivalent type strategy. Now go get them. Go smash. And don't forget, I'm live Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, every single Monday through Friday, and live when big news breaks in additional live streams. So if news breaks is huge, come to the channel. Your boy will be live.